So this next topic is like opening up a can of worms, and I expect some mixed feedback. This is just based on my experience over the years, and I thought I'd share this with you, and you can leave your comments if you are watching on YouTube. So printed circuit boards versus hand-wired when it comes to amplifiers. Now, hand-wired amps are generally easier to fix, but they're a lot more expensive to start with. Now, my actual question is, does the price justify the difference in the tone? And is the hand-wired equivalent always a better sound than the PCB equivalent? And I have to say it's not. I've had a chance to test numerous amps that were copies of Fender amps that I owned that were PCB built. And to be honest, the PCB amps have always sounded better. I don't know if they're just more consistent in the way that they're built. I'd assume that would be part of it. But I found them to be louder and just more round and full sounding. Was there something wrong with the other amps that I tested? Possibly. I had 2 or 3 at one time, and we put them up against the Fender equivalents, and the Fender was louder. It absolutely was, and I had 2 sets of ears with me when we did the test. They still sounded nice on their own. It was only up until we had a chance to do the comparison that I felt like the actual PCB one was better. And I ended up, at that time, I was in the market for a super reverb, and I wanted one that sounded great and was built well. I tested out a few clones that were made here locally, and then I tested out the actual super reverb, and it was a no-brainer. The super reverb just killed it, and it was like $2,000 less. So for me, I spent like $1,500 on a super reverb. I got an exceptionally great deal at the time, and it was a no-brainer. That may have influenced my thought, back then, but at the same time, listening back to the demos that I shot, I got to say the super reverb, the Fender super reverb PCB sounds great. Now, I've owned hand-wired amps as well, and a lot of my friends have owned them as well, and we've had a chance to test them, at gigs, and also see how reliable they are as well. Now, one thing to point out is not all the hand-wired amps are reliable. They're just not. It just comes down to luck of the draw with transformers. Some transformers can fail. Some might be better quality than others, but they can still fail. I've seen very expensive hand-wired Fender amps fail. I've also seen PCB amps fail as well. So I don't think it goes one way or the other. I just think in terms of reliability, I think that the hand-wired ones would be easier to fix if something went wrong. In terms of tone, use your ears and best judgment. Just because something says hand-wired doesn't mean it's going to sound better than the actual PCB equivalent if they do have one. So I'm a big advocate for just testing things out, using your ears, and then justifying if there's a huge difference in tone. Is it just down to speakers? Maybe one's got a different speaker than the other, or is it something else going on? So let me know your thoughts on this. It's not to badmouth or ridicule anyone who buys hand-wired amps. I've bought hand-wired amps, but for me, PCB amps are fine. They're reliable, they work great. So let me know your thoughts. Wow, even more videos. Check them out. Don't forget to subscribe if you do like the video you just watched, and if you don't, all good. Check out one of these 4, you might enjoy it more.